Bigger than capes.
Give me some sadness.
Yeah, I was just looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Oh, dry.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach. This is our June 2022 Indie Comics Roundup. And I'm joined by Angela, Matt, and Will. Sup?
Sup.
Hello.
Responding kind. Sup.
People still using sup? I don't really talk to enough people. But
I do.
I think the 90s are back again, aren't they? It's not the. So
They never
probably.
went away.
I think you tell me that every time we record a podcast. But
I think Angela just wants to believe it because it means that Valiant, it's
It's 1994 and nothing hurts. Yeah.
yeah.
But everybody
it's before the Acclaim acquisition.
It has to be, yeah. It's a very specific period of the 90s.
94 through 97. The good old days.
Those are the ones. Best years of my life.
Hey, like Blue Album and Pinkerton.
Yeah. Incidentally, I've been listening to loads of 90s music this last week, specifically like 94, 95, so
that you can travel back in time with Angela.
Yeah.
He's still compiling your best of every year.
I am. How did you know?
Where have you gotten up to?
Because I knew you'd be doing it forever, and it's still within that time frame.
I'm doing it in like no particular order, so I'm basically picking years at random.
That seems psychotic.
The idea of going front to back on this, though, like 91 to 2022,
mm-hmm.
just felt like it was going to get increasingly depressing. You know what I mean? If I realized like, hey, the 90s were pretty good, then hit the mid thousands, it was like, these were the years though, and then I would realize I was old. And bleak for most of my 20s, and then realised I'm like on the up again now, and I didn't want to do that because I'm painfully aware of that already. So,
you're going to fool yourself with a mixed order.
Yeah, I'm shaking it up a little. I'm living in the moment. I'm about halfway. I've done 15 of the years in no particular order. Mm-hmm. I know some stuff. I've made some decisions.
Have you done 1995 yet? Then
I'm halfway through 1995.
So, have you listened to Liquid Swords again yet?
No, that's not on my list, but it could be.
Yeah, it should be on your list. It's absolutely killer.
I've gotten stuck in the heights of 95's Britpop.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the incredibly lukewarm take that actually, despite everyone in Manchester moaning about them all the time, Oasis are actually really good. And what makes them bad is people with acoustic guitars covering them, when that discredits the fact that on the album they've got like a string quartet in the background and really high production values, thus making them very good.
Yeah, it was just oversaturation for me, man.
Definitely.
I'm just
everywhere.
Absolutely dumb.
I think the world needs just one What's the Story Morning Glory every like 5 years, just as a casual reminder. It's my advice.
So, talking of projects that are forever ongoing, has your ECW rewatch?
Oh, I caved on that again quite recently.
Yeah.
I jumped forward and tried to do the ECW revival rewatch.
God. ECW on Sci-Fi.
ECW on Sci-Fi, you know it well. Got about 6 months into that before life wasn't worth living.
You were just like, they can't take the belt away from the Big Show. He's the extreme giant. I won't be watching it after this.
It just gets increasingly worse every week and then you watch the pay-per-view matches and it's worse. And then you question why you're doing this to yourself. And then you start watching random episodes of Raw to kind of pad it out. And that's bad. So in conclusion, WWE ECW, the revival, is a land of contrasts. I can't tell if Matt's still with us.
I'm here. So, shall we move on to like news and general catch up?
News and sitch.
Sure.
News and such.
Would you like your news or your general catch up first?
News.
Right, well, as
Angela.
I'm the one with the news. Those of you who've been following this podcast for a while and may have heard us mention Valiant, don't know why. But they had a film, Bloodshot. We did an entire podcast on that particular film. Wasn't good. But they're pressing on with their cinematic universe. And they have got a new person in to direct and rewrite, which is not at all worrying, is it? Harbinger, which is at Paramount Pictures, not Sony. So Wes Ball was doing it, but he has stepped down to focus on The Planet of the Apes, which is a much better known and probably more successful film series.
Another Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
Focus on making one, or is he just going to focus on the film, The Planet of the Apes?
Well,
He's just going to think about it.
Yeah.
He's just going to think about that time
meditate
when there's
on
the battle
filming.
where they're all on the buses in London.
That's it. Yeah. Apparently it's deep in pre-production, which suggests it's a bit further on than Harbinger, which is it's in development, which of course, means many things. So the person who has now been tasked with trying to bring this thing into the marvelousness of pre-production is Paul Downs Colizzo. I can't pronounce his surname. I apologise. It's spelled Colaizzo. Answers on a postcard as to how you pronounce it. Colizzo will do. We'll call it
I'm not going to
that.
throw my hat into the ring.
The question mark is silent, but...
Paul to his friends. He is best known for writing and directing the Sundance film Brittany Runs a Marathon, starring Gillian Bell. I'm guessing nobody here saw that. It was acquired by Amazon Prime Video. So that went well. But that's all we can say about that. He's done a film that was popular at Sundance and went to Amazon. The producers are Neil Moritz and Toby Jaff, and Dan Mintz is producing for Valiant Entertainment. I'll believe there will be a Harbinger film when I'm sat in the cinema watching the end credits, and not before.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that about Bloodshot, and
I know, and I was sad. Pandemic nearly got me off the hook because I never actually.
I was going to say.
Filmed it.
Yeah, so since you've not been in the cinema, you still don't believe that the Bloodshot film happened.
No, it was a fever dream we all had. It was a collective fever dream.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it realistically is going to happen. Changing was it writer and director?
Yes. He's in. In fact, it doesn't actually say that he's confirmed. It just says he's in talks to direct and rewrite. So, deadline.
Fair, that did happen to like Ant-Man, and stuff with Edgar Wright.
That's about all
those were more talented people involved.
Harsh. Marvel are. I don't want to say Marvel are more committed than Valiant to making films, but there's a truth to it, isn't there?
They're seeing more return. I mean, it suggests that it is somewhere still alive, so that's something.
It's someone at Paramount is kicking it around.
Yeah.
Will it happen? Who's to say?
I've caught up on a. Sorry, Angela.
Apparently, Planet of the Apes is happening again. I think that's really the big takeaway. Carry on, Will.
That's the biggest news. I've caught up on a few comic book, TV, and cinema things I had missed. Currently up to date on The Boys. I rewatched the first 2 series of Umbrella Academy in preparation for the 3rd series, which I've only watched a little bit of so far. I think they've both been really good adaptations. I've heard quite a few complaints, as ever, that when they move away from the source material, that it's immediately negative. But I can't imagine why you just want the same thing twice. So I think they've both made interesting changes.
as someone who absolutely adored Umbrella Academy when it started, 100 years ago.
Yes, that's time.
TV show's better. There's no real space to argue it. It's better.
I think that is right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's sort of it's rewritten its plot in a more like interesting way. I think the individual characters have more depth to them.
Yeah.
I still enjoy the comic, and I think it's still like a great basis for new ideas. But yeah, I think the TV show like properly captures it. And last night I watched Doctor Strange 2 for the first time.
Oh, what do you think?
I actually quite enjoyed it, man. I thought I think it got quite a bit of stinky press. So I think my expectations weren't massive, but it has. Oh, I've just done a mind blank. Who directed it?
Sam Raimi.
Thank you. It has a lot of Sam Raimi-isms in it that I think elevate it. It's got a lot of a surprising amount of horror in it for a Marvel film. A few like quite comedic beats. I think there is a heavy use of CGI that sometimes looks a bit crappy, but I also think better than I expected. I actually thought it was pretty good. A lot of quite inventive uses for how magic sort of operates in the Marvel universe that isn't just firing fireballs at each other of varying colors.
Yeah,
there's more going on.
I really liked it. My only complaint really was that I think it does quite a lot in not much time, and I think might have suited like the TV show format a little bit more.
Sure. I can hear that.
But I still had a good time. I've been getting texts from people since it went up on Disney Plus, just complaining endlessly about it, and I've just not really been answering those people. But
yeah. I can't see why you'd have too big a problem with it. Like it's not one of the very best MCU films.
No.
But it's a real fun watch. Like it zips by.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some fun cameos that might lead to other stuff, but I also like that they kind of introduce the Illuminati and then do away with the Illuminati in pretty short order.
In about a 20-minute span, if memory serves.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't take them long.
I'm trying to think, I think I've still not seen it yet. Did really enjoy Everything Everywhere All at Once, though. That was great.
Still not seen it. I need to see it.
You really should. If you want to see a really excellent, kind of multiverse movie, go and see Everything Everywhere All at Once. And go in knowing as little as possible.
I agree.
I'd been excited for it for months before it came out, and after friends and people I kind of knew in America wouldn't shut up about it, and I still somehow managed to avoid pretty much everything about it. So yeah, go and see it. And if you do, I promise I'll finally watch Doctor Strange or some other thing you want me to watch.
I think my current problem, and I think I've mentioned this on other podcasts, is that I have just retired from the world of cinemas.
Yeah, I get that. I am. God, I was like, how much of a pretentious prick do I want to be? Do I want to call myself a cineast?
I don't think you do.
No,
don't go there.
But I'm someone. I enjoy going to the cinema to see a film of specific of something that really appeals to me. Though I did also watch recently a film that really appealed to me that I was really disappointed with. I discovered that there was a Canon Pictures movie that had Peter Weller in it, and I was like, okay, this had better be good. And it was like a 3-star film. at best, and I was so sad because I was like, it's Peter Weller. He's playing like a mercenary. It's a canon movie, so there's going to be like more squibs than you could ever imagine. Like someone's going to get like RoboCopped without like being rebuilt. But it was basically like the movie Ishtar in the end, with some canon level violence, rather than being like American Samurai or any of the other good ones. Because I'm just trying to remember some of the actual names of them, because I've nicknamed so many of them. Like one of them I just refer to as Turkish Bloodsport, because it's Bloodsport basically set in Turkey.
I mean,
hey, if it ain't broken.
And features a guy who looks like the Berserker from WWF at one point. And I love that. Right. So yeah,
this has just put me onto, and Matt is the most likely candidate here, but I recently rewatched Vampire's Kiss.
Yep.
And apparently everyone I speak to just hasn't seen it.
Oh, great movie. I mean,
bad movie made by Nicolas Cage's really, really over the top acting.
It's his manic energy in it elevates an otherwise like
terrible
mediocre
vampire
film. Yeah,
barely a vampire film.
Like just about everyone will have seen like the bits where he does like the A B C D with the little piano and stuff, like the little piano music behind it and stuff like. But it's unfortunately it's a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it's like longer than I remember it being.
It's like an hour 40, maybe.
I think something like that, and it's available on one streaming service right now. Streaming service being Apple TV.
Oh, nice.
Why would you need a streaming service for it? I own it on DVD.
Because I wanted it on Blu-ray, obviously.
Is it available on
Blu-ray? Only in Germany and Spain, and the cost of that plus the import seemed extortionate versus
I'm still
Apple
waiting
for once.
I'm still waiting for them to release Gigli on Blu-ray so I can send it to you.
And that's all we've got time for this week.
But yeah, I'm trying to think if I've done anything interesting myself this week. I've mostly just been recovering from dental surgery. So I've been sleeping a lot, and when I've been awake, I've just been on a lot of painkillers. So that's an excellent way to say that I think I reread some Berserk again, because like being in kind of a phantasmagoric state is pretty good for looking at like hell, like interesting hellscapes.
I mean, you take the wrong psychedelics and that is a bad time.
An important message for everyone at home. Also,
take the
Matt.
right psychedelics. Kids.
I like how you've made this into like a, public information video.
Yeah. It's not about not doing drugs. It's about doing the right drugs.
Yes.
And on that bombshell, should we talk about comics, or does someone have some comics to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk comics.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Like drugs in many ways.
More expensive.
Yeah. Get less use out of them.
On that note, so this is our June roundup. We've picked somewhat at random 4 books because there's quite a lot that's come out in June.
Tons.
Yeah. Lot.
I'm going to go first, and I'm going to introduce Beware the Eye of Odin #1 from Image Comics. It is written by Doug Wagner. It is drawn by Tim Odland. It is coloured by Michelle Madsen, lettered by Ed Dukeshire, and designed by Erica Schnatz. And is the first Doug Wagner book I've read that isn't about some kind of modern day killing spree. So I guess, in a way, he's growing as a person. This is, as the title suggests, quite Norse mythology heavy, but seemingly no Thor. So I guess in a way that's an achievement.
Something fresh.
No Thor yet.
No Thor yet. Thor gets a first page mention naturally, but no Thor as of the first 40 pages or whatever this is. Follows Prince Helgi as he has come into possession of the Eye of Odin, which, unless he gets rid of by giving it back to its rightful owner by the next new moon, next full moon, next new moon, he'll die horribly, as one does, I assume. And he sets out on his mission to give away the eye, give back the eye, joined by Curtis Stigers?
Stinger. I don't know.
I feel like Matt's going to weigh in here with an accurate Norse pronunciation.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember. I'd say maybe Stiga.
Stiga? Yeah, Stiga feels right. Stiga, who is the one-armed blacksmith weapon-making type, who arms himself with a anvil on a chain, and yeah, not a bad shout. Incidentally, you can buy an anvil on Amazon for about 130 quid. That is unrelated knowledge I have gained in the last few days.
That's a lot cheaper than I would have expected.
There's different sizes. I think that's that's 50 kilograms. But I still like the idea of getting one delivered just to screw with the neighbour downstairs.
A good mate of mine is a blacksmith.
Christmas present, there you go.
Comes in a variety of colours as well. You got options.
Yeah.
Putting an anvil on a chain, very much something I can do for about 200 quid.
Sounds legit.
Leave that with me. But that's a weapon in this. Big fan. And Cadlin, who is a woman who believes she's a Valkyrie, who also rides a giant warthog thing at one point in this, and
it's a boar
hog, of course. You show me the difference between a warthog and a boar, and I'll show you a liar. There are also three-headed troll dudes and little hundredfolk guys. And a talking mouse, potentially. Or is Cadlin just talking to the mouse?
Maybe she's mad.
Yeah, it's unclear whether she's just making it up or whether the mouse is actually speaking to her.
But don't we all speak to our pets?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Equally, frost giants. Some of those too. I'm not doing this much justice, but I really liked this. It's real dumb. And I mean that in the best possible way. I think it's interesting to see Doug Wagner do something that isn't kind of a bloody kill fest in the modern era. It's
doing a bloody kill fest in the
past era.
In the Norse era.
It's also struck me because this is one of the last books I read, and I think Tim Odland's art is actually just really nice. Kind of classic comic booky, but really expressive, and really there's a good variety in character design, which I'm a big fan of. I also think Michelle Madsen's colours really work, and I'm just going to leave lettering open for Angela in a few minutes.
I have feelings.
But yeah, I was really into this pretty immediately. I'm always unsure what we're going to get with anything Norse mythology inspired, because Marvel kind of cornered the market on that, and it feels like everyone else has to try and carve a space around it. The last that I was a big fan of was Heathen, which I think we talked about last year.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand this one over to Will.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I agree with you for the most part, but I think it's pretty decent. I think the art is. At the beginning, I thought it was a little inconsistent. I felt like there was a few kind of proportional problems, but actually, as the book went through, I think it gets better and better. The backgrounds are mostly really detailed. What are they called? These little Hundra folk. I think their design is very cool, particularly the one that like hisses at him with the little needle teeth. I think that was a really nice design. I think the individual characters are pretty fun, but I think some of the beats feel a bit kind of dropped in, like the eye itself. The book just sort of starts and he goes, right, I've got it, and this is what I need to do, and it gives you a little bit of a monologue to kind of set you up rather than showing you how things got to this place. And it continues to do that a little bit where you get conversations that explain that he's this kind of cursed prince, but you don't really see how that affects his life or what that means in practice, other than just being called cursed. But other than that, like, I think the characters are fun, and you're right, they're varied as well. And I guess that the core MacGuffin of having the eye, maybe that's it. Maybe that's enough to just get from A to B and sort of have fun with these characters while doing it. Like, I think some of the humor lands. I think some of the action scenes are really good. There is some interesting like paneling and page structure. I think there's quite a lot to like in it.
I agree.
Yes, I also agree with that. Yeah. No, I really like the characters. I think you've got poor Helgi, which I did a double take because the bad guy in Time Before Time is called Helgi. So it took me a minute to sort of go, hang on a sec, is this what's he like? But no, I think it's really nice. I think the fact that you have Stiger. How did we decide we pronounced his name? Stiger?
Stiger.
Thank you. Just go with what Matt said. I'm terrible at this. But I liked the fact that he make his own weapon. He's just like, no, I'll do an anvil on a chain because why not? I've only got one arm, but I'm not going to be useless. And yeah, it was nice because, Helgi's got his curse going on. He's got his, fact that he lost an arm and he wants to prove himself. And then you've got Cadlin, who's just completely and utterly mad, frankly. And I love her for it. It's like, I'll talk to a mouse. I'll wear a cloak of feathers. Why not? And because I have to, I'm just going to say, interesting lettering. I'm not that familiar with Ed Dukeshire, but quite good lettering. Nice emphasis on certain words in speech, which I enjoyed. Just going to throw that out there. But yeah, I liked the design. I like the fact that it draws on Norse mythology that we've pretty much all heard of frost giants at this point. We've all heard of Odin, generally. Hundra folk, I didn't know. They're amazing. Let's have more of those. And also giant warthog boars. So no, it was fun. It was, even though it's quite a long one, I think this is probably the longest or one of the longest of the books we've looked at this month. It didn't feel that long. It felt like really, really nicely paced.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And yeah, it never felt like, I was like, oh, is that the end? I was, sometimes when you have like a 40-odd page first issue, you're like, oh God, when will it end? This should have been half the length. But here, that didn't feel like that at all. It was, it was really well done. There was a lot that went on, but it wasn't rushed and it wasn't too slow. And also, I want to see more of the Mouse of the Slain, frankly, because what's going on with that? So yeah, good.
I fairly enjoyed this. Like, I thought that the art in particular was quite a highlight. I liked, like you say, the variety of body types and stuff that were shown, and Stiga is like ungodly buff,
Yes.
which is cool. He looks like an action figure. Like, Zach, do you remember the Maximum Sweat WWF action figures?
Unfortunately, I do.
Yeah, he looks like a Billy Gunn, one of those. Like, it's terrifying. I don't mean in the face, but just
but in the body.
Yeah. As someone who knows and studied like folklore and stuff, there are a few things in here which aren't quite right. So that's interesting, and I generally believe that means like it's like that's deliberate rather than a mistake, as a lot of them are quite basic little things. Like when it talks about Mimir as the king of the frost giants, when like Mimir is the keeper of Minnisbrunna, the well into which Odin cast his eye in exchange for knowledge, and like Lauthi is the like ruler of the frost giants and stuff like that. So like stuff like that like is interesting, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting twist that you're doing to this. Like, I'm interested to kind of see what these little divergences mean in this, like, in a longer form sort of work. And yeah, it was all very abrupt, but that's often the way with folk tales, I guess. Like, I'd say,
true.
In its defense, like they often just start. We're told about the character, like the main heroic characters and such, and then we just go. And that's kind of what happens here. Like, we are very much in medias res, as a frost giant's been killed, the eye has been taken, and we therefore kind of have our call to action. It's abrupt, it's kind of sudden, but it works in the structure that it's trying to kind of it works in the form that it's trying to evoke, I guess. I quite enjoyed this. The 100 Folk are great. It's a very nice little interpretation of them. Little Smurfs. Yeah.
Good
talk.
So, our next book is Do a Powerbomb! ! I'm sorry, I'd do it a bit louder, but I can't really get the energy out with my mouth at the moment. The team of Daniel Warren Johnson, who is writer, artist, and creator, colors by Mike Spicer, and letters by Ross Wooten. As you may have guessed from the title, it's a wrestling book. It's a book about wrestling and family and wrestling
with family
and wrestling with family. And we open on a match, backstage before a huge match between the main character, Lona's mother, Ewa Steel Rose, and her opponent Cobra Sun in like what's like a title defense that looks to be like one of the biggest matches of like her career, like against an old rival, and she's accidentally like killed in the ring as a result of like a botched like top rope. I'm trying to say what I think the move is. Like they say it's like a what do they call it?
They call it like the setting sun or something.
Yeah.
I need to know
top
now.
rope setting sun.
Because I thought for a second that it was just going to be like some sort of top rope power bomb, but it looks like some sort of top rope pile driver. Like which, I mean that's a move that's going to kill. Like even if you don't slip, like you're going to end up with some like you're going to end up with like a Styles Clash level of broken necks. But yeah, so Yua dies as a result of like an accident in the match, and her daughter Lona, like as a result of this, kind of becomes estranged from her father, and like we skip 10 years as she's training to be a wrestler, as it's like her only real sort of connection with her, like with her mom, and especially after the kind of distancing from her father, like she can't find anyone willing to train her after her dad has kind of shied everyone away from it. It starts off interesting. It's like she's out trying to find a trainer. There's someone in the background who's been watching her, and we're like, oh, is this person going to come and be her trainer? And it's like, oh no, this person's some sort of magic electric wrestling necromancer who actually takes her to wrestling Mortal Kombat. With the prize being obviously that she could resurrect her mother. Zach,
Yes.
the DLPW title belts.
Yes.
Best belt.
The one at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a pretty sick belt.
It's just pretty sweet. I don't know what to tell you.
It looks like it looks like a partial face mask that someone would wear in wrestling.
Got that like Shingo Takagi kind of dragon mask.
The actual name of those type of masks that would often be part of like a kabuto.
Yeah, there's a name. I just can't remember what it is.
But yeah, this is a really gorgeous book.
Yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson's art has always been pretty awesome, and Extremity and Murder Falcon I thought were pretty great. So I was quite looking forward to this. Wonder Woman Dead Earth is also available. No, it is also good. It's just I like it less than those other two. But his art is really good. I think that sounds really dumb and stupid to just be like, yeah, it's real good. But I think this kind of his style is so recognizable, and he makes everything quite over the top, but in a way that
it works for wrestling, though.
Yeah, it always suits. So it suits this. It's in Murder Falcon where everything's really heavy metal. It really works for that.
He's good at things where the genre thrives on, like the topic he's handling thrives on that over the topness that is already so ludicrous in of itself.
Definitely, yeah.
there's just the right level of like cartoon elasticity to people when they're getting like chucked around and punched, that it adds to all the weight of the hits, but never feels unrealistic.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and also like a number of the moves, like there's a great part where a wrestler does like a Falcon Arrow to Lona, and it is distinctively a Falcon Arrow. Like you can look at the stages of it.
Yeah, and even if broken down into like 3 panels, it still makes sense.
Yeah, you can look at it and go, yeah, that looks like a Falcon Arrow. And yeah, there's a few little things like that are like things where it's gone, okay, this person's thought about how to show wrestling.
I agree.
Well, as you'll know, and probably our listeners will know, every time you talk about it, I have little to no interest in wrestling. But I wouldn't let that put anybody off this book, because I think the family elements of it and the emotional beats are what I liked about this book. And I think all of the drama and stuff in the ring is drawn excellently and is really like fun to read through. But the bits that carried me along was the kind of the family drama, and then ultimately the sort of supernatural twist ending. That hopefully will take it to like different places. But if it didn't have that, I'd still be into the mother-daughter relationship, and like you say, the sort of severed connection with her father and the old trainer, and I was into all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm with Whit. I know very little about wrestling other than that it is a thing that exists. But I thought this was really good because it does play more on the family relationships, like the daughter wanting to avenge her mother in a weird kind of way, and also, you know, the character names alone.
Yes.
Just, I mean, that the creepy guy, Willard Necroton, you know, he's a necromancer kind of a guy. I just love that. I think that's the best name that we've had probably this week. But yeah, no, it was really good. I'm going to go with the lettering, because go with what you know. So Russ Wotton is a good letterer, and he does good work here also. And Mike Spicer does good colours also, because he's been around a bit. But no, so the art is good. Come for the family drama, stay for the nice little drawn wrestling action scenes. Also the fact her uncle is Uncle Blood, just yeah. But no, it was, despite the fact, like Will says, don't let the fact that if you don't know anything about wrestling put you off, because it is just a good book regardless of the theme.
Absolutely. Zach, question. Do you remember that sign that someone had once? It's a famous one, which is, hey, do you remember when The Undertaker could shoot lightning?
Yeah.
Do you think that's why the necromancer in this is covered in electricity? Because The Undertaker used to be able to shoot lightning?
Probably. I think there's definitely that supernatural influence of the shooting lightning, teleporting.
It's just, I mean, at some point,
stick to the Undertaker used to shtick.
At some point, we're going to have that thing where he levitates out through a television, and then goes off, goes up into the ceiling, and then Leslie Nielsen has to help find him after he goes missing for a summer, and there's a fake Willard Necroton who works for Ted DiBiase now.
I think this is only a limited run, but yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, all of that.
Oh, and he's gonna someone's gonna be in a limousine, and he's gonna roll down like a like the window between the driver's cab,
thing.
and it'll be just like, "Where to, Stefan?" Which is my favorite thing in wrestling. That's like one of the best moments. It's so dumb.
I wouldn't have put that down as one of
No,
my
it's
favorites.
not in my top
but
10. Like it's in my top. It's in my top 10 like dumb moments.
Well, the most important moments in many ways.
Yeah, exactly. It's most wrestling moments are dumb moments, I guess.
Definitively, yeah.
But yeah, good book.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly expecting the supernatural twist.
No.
But I'll take it.
Like, delete this if you think it's just a total spoiler, but Cobra Sun's obviously her dad, right?
Maybe. Could
Like,
be.
Mm.
Her dad didn't look that jacked, though.
no, but he is wearing a coat, and he isn't out with them in the crowd.
He's hiding himself under his coat.
Yeah, it's like
It isn't a
Does that
connection I'd considered, to be honest.
No,
Really?
I have to say I didn't go there.
I immediately went there.
I mean, if someone's wearing a coat and actually they're wearing a coat because they're ripped, does that mean Columbo is like the most
Yes,
ripped man
Columbo
in
is the most
existence?
jacked man in the world.
I mean, it's possible you've got a little bit of wishful headcanon going on there.
That's why, like, that's why he gets answers out of everyone, because he just like goes. They're secretly just intimidated by the fact that like fucking hench Peter Falk is in their house. He's just like, just one more thing, he says as his abs ripple.
I'm suddenly getting a glimpse into Matt's Columbo fanfic.
Yeah.
It's
I
an
don't know if I like
interesting
it.
place, isn't it? I'd read
Yeah,
it.
my wife, she loves the biceps.
As long as you don't bring the dog into it, it'll be fine.
I was about to make a joke about the dog, but like,
Stay away from that.
then I was thinking about the fact that he's like, that time when he tells the dog to watch the car, and he says, and if you do a good job, you'll get another cookie when I get back. And if you don't do a good job, you'll still get another cookie because I love you. I love that dog.
It's just great television.
Yeah.
Columbo's great.
Just
so in
like
conclusion,
this comic book.
in conclusion, to do a Powerbomb, watch Columbo.
Columbo is great.
Yeah, so true.
I don't know what's happening.
But no, I think
much like Sax
that Daniel Warren Daniel Warren
Johnson
Johnson
is
is
the breakout star of another book. Columbo is the breakout star of Do a Powerbomb.
without doubt. Daniel Warren Johnson, I think, has got to that point where he is worth following around rather than characters or whatever. And I hope he continues to do these kind of mini series with different ideas and doesn't get too bogged down with, like mainline stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
The next book is my book, I guess. And yeah, all right, it's a tricky one to describe. It appears to be a book about a group of university students effectively creating mind control through what appears to be the use of an app and becoming billionaires and then murdering somebody. But it's one of those stories where you kind of get the punchline at the beginning, and then it starts to work you back through how you got there. So is Ben Sharp, is he our main?
I assume
guy, isn't
he
he?
was
Yeah.
the main guy. You can see how well this is by the character list I made and how detailed and obvious it is. With the question marks.
Ben Sharp has apparently been arrested for killing his investor, and it intimates that perhaps he was under some sort of mind control when that took place. And then we wind backwards to him and his two buddies. Probably have names.
Josiah is possibly one of them.
Cool beans.
Josiah and I know this. Kashal.
Good work.
I know things.
You know
Nice.
a thing or two.
gonna cut that out and put that in throughout the episode as well. Just no
I know.
But the plot hangs on the fact that Ben needs kind of one more test credit in order to graduate, and manages to find somebody to let him in the university building to take this test credit. And it turns out to be a kind of basic psychology test, measuring a random selection of lights and sounds, of which one combination may or may not make you do things. And through that test, they think they've sort of found this combination. And I guess, it's going to lead on to eventually him killing a man. Let's figure out what happens between then and the beginning or the end.
The end of the beginning. The beginning.
It's a tough
of
book
the
to
end.
describe.
It is, isn't it?
I think it starts without having too clear a plot. But I really like the art. I think that it was pretty much enough to carry me through this book. It's got a sort of partly painted, partly sort of heavy silhouette, and almost like, is it David Mack? Like he's sort of scratched in lines into colours.
Yes, sometimes.
Do you know what I mean? There's like big expressions around people's heads or things like that, where it's sort of scratched out. And I think it's a kind of quite unique art style, or at least one that you don't see very often.
Did we get the creative team at the top there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We didn't get any of that. It's written by Zach Kaplan. It's arted by John Pearson. It's lettered by Angela.
Hassan Otsmain Allahu.
Thank you very much. And it's published by Vault. So yeah, I quite mixed feelings about this book.
As I thought.
Not valiant as originally thought. I guess I kind of struggled a little bit with the kind of confusingness of what was going on. Maybe purposeful, based on the fact it's all about mind control and junk. But I really enjoyed the art in this one, and for a first issue at least, that's enough to get me interested in another one.
Yeah, it's like a journey through someone's consciousness, because it is basically, you start off and you think, oh, this guy's talking about a murder, and then you go back and he's like, no, I'll take you back to the very beginning. And you start off with them pitching like their app, and the Silicon Valley investors are like, nope. And then he talks about his family and being a high achiever, but he's not really a high achiever, and having to get all these credits and desperately trying to find a TA who will supervise this experiment. And finally he finds one. And yeah, I had to read it a couple of times because it sort of doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But there's all kinds of sort of thoughts about the nature of technology and technology startups and identity and how the mind works. It's quite deep, but the art is probably the bigger selling point. I mean, the art works for that weird stream of consciousness idea, because the plot, it is basically a murder plot, but it's not a murder plot. It's something beyond murder. It's beyond in the mind's eye. But it is really the art that sort of stands out. It's like that whole bit where he's describing about how his parents actually split up when he was 5, but because they had a successful real estate business, they stayed together, and that whole sort of double page of all the sort of little snapshots of the family. But yeah, I think I liked it, but I don't understand it. And because I will say it's got the best lettering of the books, but that's because I'm biased. But yeah, it's the mind weird. Yeah.
I Disagree. I just think there are a lot of this book at the moment, and cool, sure. But on the other hand, like we had, I don't know what the book was called, which I admit is an issue, but like not long ago, we read a Aftershock book that was about a kid celebrity thing that.
Oh yeah,
the one with like the mitochondrial computing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever that was, and I think there was a book.
Not mitochondrial, myco. Yeah, like it was myconoid, not mitochondrial. Myconoid. It was mushroom.
That was it. The mushrooms.
But we've had things like that about kind of the dangers of social media and celebrity, and we've had. I want to say it was called something like Coming to Me or something like that, which I think was similar. I feel like we've just had a lot of books that touch on that kind of idea of social media bad. Follow us on Twitter. And I think we've had. I disagree. I think a lot of books look exactly like this right now. I think Anandar K on Blue and Green, Green and Blue, Black and Green, looks like this.
Yeah.
I think Department of Truth is this. If this was folded, this could be an arc in Department of Truth, and I don't think I would bat an eyelid at it. And I don't know. I think I kind of checked out on this quite early because it comes across as a book that's trying to be very, very intelligent in what it does, but it's kind of overestimating how unique it is in what it does. I think there's quite a lot of this commentary being done, and I don't think it screams as being too unique at the moment. I think there's quite a lot of this stuff right now. Maybe I'm wrong.
It is a bit kind of posy cerebralism. Like, look how clever we are to write a book about the mind. No one's done that before. Let us delve deep into consciousness and, lay it all out for you. It does feel a little bit like, look how clever we are at points.
Yeah, I don't know. I think criticizing anything in comics for kind of being like other stuff is always a bit tricky because everything's narrowed into like various sort of subgenres. I mean, we've got 2 high fantasy books this month, and
they're completely different.
But I take on board, as you say, things like Blue and Green. You're right; it does. It has a very similar kind of look to that. I've not read any of Department of Truth. But to be fair, if it looks like this, I would be excited to read it. I think there have been other stuff like this, like Mind MGMT.
Yes.
But I guess I'm just a bit of a sucker for this kind of commentary. Like, I think it is kind of reflective of the world, and I don't know, one of the kind of major current events that I think science fiction often reflects its time era, and I think this is just one of those things. But yeah, I'm down for it.
Yeah, I remember once listening to a guy talking about he could tell you like it was something like down to the year. It was like, I think it was on Radio 4 once. A guy could tell you down to the year when a science fiction novel was written. Based on like speculative, let's say a speculative fiction novel generally was written based on the subject matter because of what were the fears or hopes of the people around that time. And I think it is very much in the zeitgeist at the moment. I don't consider it being trend chasing in the way that I would think of like as the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s zombie books. But I think it's something that is just generally on people's minds a lot now, and is a topic that needs discussion and exploration, about how the influence that social media has is like it's a two-way street, like that it has input and output. Like you affect it as a user, but it does rewire your brain. So there's a lot to explore with that idea, but I admittedly was thinking a lot about the Venture Brothers episode where they create God gas, and accidentally, basically, like it's mind control gas, but they accidentally like create religion in these mice by dosing them up with it, and there's a scene where a mouse is being crucified by the other mice, whilst like three of the mice in like a typical sort of first century dress are mourning at the bottom of a hill. Venture Brothers is great. But yeah, I enjoyed this book well enough. I think that if I'd been in a more cerebral mood when I read it, and I did try to reread it, but I'm struggling with cerebral stuff at the moment, because of just and also painkillers. But it's I think it's better than I feel it is right now. And talking of who the art reminded me of, I think you're right with Mac, but I also thought about Dave McKean with Arkham. Like maybe the worst Grant Morrison book. There's
debate to be had there.
Yeah, there's a lot of Grant Morrison books, some of which are bad. But Arkham Asylum, Serious House, and Serious Earth is one of my least favorites. But it reminded me of that, and I don't think I absorbed it all too well, if I'm being absolutely honest. So I'd feel bad saying too much more than that. So yeah, that's I think that's my thoughts.
Fair play.
Mm.
I think this one might be one that proves itself in the long run, or doesn't, or just fails to kind of like pick up anything. How they fill in the gaps between the alleged murder and like the point where they discover this sort of mind control will either be like, I don't know, a fun sort of romp, or could be just very like claggy plot. But I think, for me anyway, I like the art enough that I will probably have a read of the second issue of this.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that was the mind. Now let's move on to potions. There is no connection. Right, so the last book is Potions Inc., published by Mad Cave. The writer is Eric Burnham. The artist is Stella Deer. The flats were by Ian Taggs. The letters were by Micah Myers. The editor was Erica Schultz. The cover artist was Natasha Alterici. And the book and logo designer was David Rias. So, Potions Inc. starts off, we open in the Go on, Zach. Well,
I'm just really
you have a-
confused that I'm just not confused, surprised that the editor of this is Erica Schultz, and the designer of one of the other was Erica Schnatz.
Yes,
That seems
the Erica's are taking.
that's like someone doing 2 jobs under a fake name.
Erica S. She just controls all of comics now. She's just in there. Just look out for that name. And I did a double take as well, actually. So, Potions Inc. We'll carry on. Potions Inc. opens with a little girl called Geneva who is being told a story by her dad about a guy called Canavin Goras, who was a wizard who lived in another land and ended up, being corrupted by power, because that's what happens. And then we switch from that to now. I did say that we had a really good name earlier, but here's another good name. Randall Gast Quatermuth Jones, who for the rest of this will be referred to as Ran, because that's what everyone calls him. So Ran, his parents run a Potions Inc. They run Potions Inc. They run it on the market. They do potions. They do good potions. That's what they do. But Ran longs for more, sort of, but he's a little bit unfocused, and he doesn't, he's tried a few things, they've not worked out. So his parents suggest that he should get himself a good luck charm, because that will make everything better. So he chooses a good luck charm. He ends up in the market with his twin siblings Astera and Astrius, who are just, they're typical younger siblings. And they're running the potions when, oh no, their arch rival, Poncelina Arche. The names in this, the names alone. I mean, we find out the dad's called Feldimayon later, which is, But anyway, so Poncelina Arche recognises this good luck charm that Ran has happened to find, because it was just lying about his dad's workshop, as actually an immensely powerful stone. She consults with sort of her dead grandfather ghost. And promptly steals Ran away. So the parents then task Ran and the twins with getting this back. That's basically the entire plot. Spoilers, but no, I actually really liked it. It was a bit weird because you start off with Geneva and then you spend most of the rest of the issue with Ran and family, and in that sort of medieval fantasy setting with potions and things. And it was like, well, what's the connection to the little girl? And gradually you're like, oh, yeah. And by the end of the book, it's quite obvious where the connection's going to be, which is nice. But no, I liked Ran. He's one of life's little losers until destiny comes knocking on the door. It's been done before. It's very similar in many regards to Beware the Eye of Odin. But I'm not going to lie. But there's a little bit of a twist at the end, and I just enjoyed it. I like the ridiculous fantasy names. The art's quite fun. It's quite, I wouldn't say necessarily cute, but yeah, it's not realistic per se, but it's, it fits with that. We've seen it a lot in other books at the moment where we've sort of got that light-hearted fantasy aesthetic, such as Beware the Eye of Odin. But no, I really liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. I like the characters. I like the setup. I think it was good. If you've read sort of the synopsis for the whole of what is going to be the first trade, basically Ran and the twins end up in 1992 in the modernish world, looking for this. Because Arche disappears off with this into another dimension, which happens to be this world. No doubt they'll meet up with Geneva. You kind of get that vibe. But I like that we have all this establishment first. And the Voltarises, which are the creatures that Arche summons to kidnap Ran and grab the stone off him, are just really interesting little designs. So, yeah, in conclusion, I liked it. Who's next? So it was that good. No one else has anything to say.
I can say words. I can do the words. I like this too.
Yay!
Thanks. I'll be back next week. No, I think it's a lot of setup, and I think next issue will be more interesting. However, I like the art. I was curious about this because Eric Burnham, he'd done some Turtles and some Ghostbusters and some Transformers and some IDWs.
Some licensed properties.
As they're known in the biz, yeah. I think his range of characters in this are all quite interesting, but quite classic fantasy-ish characters. I don't know. I feel like this could have afforded to be longer, so we saw some of where it was going to go, because I feel like this is a lot of premise to lead into whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna take the dissenting view, I'm afraid. This didn't do very much for me.
Thanks, Will.
I think the art is like, I think you're right that it fits the setting, but I didn't find it particularly inspiring or like exciting. I think it is serviceable. The one thing that struck me from the beginning is it's called Potions Inc. and has almost nothing to do with potions. I mean, they run a potion shop.
I bet they're not even incorporated.
The family business, they run a potion shop that for about 3 pages and then never mention it again. One of the twins can do potions, but again, you don't learn like how they're made or anything like that. She just goes, I've got these potions I've made, and they do everything and anything. Also, yeah, coming into the kind of modernish world, it's the same with your take on mindset, Zach, just in reverse. Like, it is just not for me, this one. I feel like that. I think if it's in your wheelhouse, I think it does a pretty good job of setting up its version of this kind of story. But yeah, I just sort of floated through this one and got to the end and thought, fine, that'll do. Matt, where you at?
I didn't really click with this. There were 1 or 2 bits of the art I actually quite liked. There's an early page in it that does something quite nice where it recreates a kind of like fairy tale images, like the story is being told. And God, I'm trying to remember the specific term. But yeah, like these pages where like it's almost scroll work and stuff like are really nice, really cool. But the rest of it didn't particularly click with me at all, and I'm not 100% sure why, but it just left me quite cold, really, on it. Though seeing the name Ponsolina reminded me that I did once play at a LARP, like an 18th century pirate LARP, where I was the son of an aristocrat who was a captain in the British Navy. I played a character called George Oscar Hercules Ponsonby, and the name Ponsolina made me remember that quite fondly. I was there in my little red coats gear with my musket and stuff. It was a proper laugh.
Sounds adorable.
Yeah, it was very adorable. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Potions Inc. I had a good time at a LARP where I was a redcoat once.
Fair enough. It probably is one of those, if it's your kind of thing, you like
Absolutely.
it. If it's not your kind of thing, you probably won't click with it. Which, because people have different tastes. Shocking. Use it 11.
Yeah, high fantasy's a funny. It has to strike quite a balance for me to get over. I think some of its kind of core, sort of core tropes of fantasy.
Yeah.
So sometimes when it does something a bit kind of left field or a bit interesting with it, which this could do, but based on this one issue, it feels like it's sort of just treading a line that I'm not currently that interested in pursuing.
Fair enough. I'm following that line to the sunset.
So shall we do rankings?
Uptown rankings.
Who would like to go first? Oh shit! I think I just volunteered myself.
You did.
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little weird and say that I don't feel comfortable including mindset, just because I don't think I actually took it in very well. So I'd feel weird ranking it. So it's going to be like a top 3 for me. And in number 3 is Potions Inc. Like I say, I just didn't click with this book. There's a few points in it that I actually really quite liked, but overall, it's just not a Matt book, at least not at the moment. Second would be Beware the Eye of Odin. It's fun. It's got some nice art, art good. And as a big muscle guy who looks like an action figure with a chain with an anvil on the end, what's more to like? As someone who's had to help someone move like an anvil before now, and help them set up like a forge somewhere, I can tell you anvils are heavy. So I like that.
If cartoons taught me anything, anvils are heavy.
Yeah.
And in number 1, do a Powerbomb! !
To give it its full title.
It's really fun. I say it's really fun. Someone's mum dies and then they're traumatized by it and become estranged from the rest of their family. But
what fun.
Back to that. If you just take that out, it's really fun. There's some good wrestling in it. You can tell that Daniel Warren Johnson actually is writing about something he's passionate about, especially his letter, kind of his letter thing in the back where he talks about kind of discovering wrestling again, in 2018 with New Japan and stuff, is something that really adds to the book for me, in that it just talks about a very relatable experience that leads to something like this, and I look forward to seeing more of this book.
Cool beans. I'll volunteer to go next if no one minds.
By all means, go
Feel
for it.
free.
Mainly because it's not going to be very different. Unsurprisingly, Potions Inc. is my number 4. I'm not going to go into too much more about that. The sort of 3 and 2 are kind of much of a muchness, I think. I'm probably going to put Beware the Eye of Odin at 3. It treads some of the same ground as Potions Inc., but I just think the art's better. It seems to employ some more unusual bits of Norse mythology, which is fun to see. It's not the standard stuff. I think that one could be quite fun. I think the characters are good in that. But at second place, I'm going to put Mindset. I got on with the cerebral nature, I suppose, and I do like that art style, even if it's not as unique as I thought. But I agree that number one is Do a Powerbomb. Despite my complete lack of interest in kind of real wrestling, I bought the emotional beats and the kind of family dramas and ties more in this book than any of the others. The supernatural twist just kind of adds to the overall fun, and is more in my wheelhouse than just the wrestling in itself. But the art's superb, and I think they were the best written characters. So, number one, Do a Powerbomb. Thank you so much.
I can go next unless you particularly want to, Angela.
Well, I'm going to be really unpopular, so you go next.
It is what it is. 3 and 4, I don't know. It's kind of a choose your own 3 and 4. Between
have to roll a dice.
Yeah. Between Potions and Mindset, I don't care much about either. For kind of different reasons. I don't think either of them are bad. I just think neither of them are for me. And reading both of them felt like hard work. And considering how different they both are, that might be just my headspace at the moment. Like Matt not taking in Mindset, it might just be that both of them for me. Today wasn't their day. Or yesterday, or whenever I read them that first time, whenever I read them again. I think Potions Inc. is a decent setup for what could be a really interesting, like, reality hopping fantasy book, but it kind of needs an issue 2 to get there. And I'm also concerned that it might only be a 4-issue series. And if your plot starts in issue 2, that's kind of not a lot of time to tell much story.
That's tight.
I think Mindset could get good as well. I think the art is nice, and I think the premise isn't bad. It's not for me right now. And I agree with what Matt said. I think that it is important to talk about, people being manipulated by social media and the internet, and technology in general is, not necessarily good for people all the time. And I think that is a very valid point. I'm just not sure this first issue approaches those in the way that it needs to all the time. Also, 1 and 2 could change on a daily basis, but for the sake of today, I'm going to say 2 is Beware the Eye of Odin. For largely the reasons I said earlier, I just think this is a good comic. I think it's dumb and dumb in all the right ways. I think Doug Wagner has a tendency to get real ridiculous real fast, and when you've got an army of tiny little monsters stealing all of your shit, I think he's pretty committed to that bit. I think it's going to get weird and probably dwell in a space not dissimilar from Barbaric. But I think delusional woman who thinks she's a Valkyrie. Hey, maybe she is a Valkyrie. I don't know. One-armed man swinging an anvil and cursed prince.
Who are you to tell her anything?
I think all 3 of them have got good potential to be protagonists and to be enjoyable. And in one, Do a Powerbomb is what Matt and Will have said. I can't believe I'm agreeing with them both. It feels dirty. But
welcome to the Dirt Club.
I don't like that.
Rub dirt on ourselves and read comics. That's the symbol that we make. I'm glad this is an audio podcast.
I am a wrestling fan, as we have covered repeatedly in the last year and a half or whatever. I think Daniel Warren Johnson represents wrestling in a way that feels more genuine than some other comics, if that makes sense. I think we've seen other wrestling comics the last few years, and whilst this kind of keeps the kayfabe alive a little bit more than some of the others. I think that it feels like there's a lot of love in the wrestling elements and designing the titles to look like New Japan belts or fantasy New Japan belts are kind of cool to me. I also think, the fantasy supernatural twist at the end is all the things I'm into. I read that comic. Don't know what it's called. It's somewhere. Is it called Backtrack? Something like that? Backtrack, Fast Track. About the race through time and space where the winner gets a prize based on whatever they want. Because it's, I'm just a big fan of anything where it's like, duel the devil to
Cosmic
get the thing
competition.
you want.
Let me tell you about a little anime called Outlaw Star.
Can we mute Matt, please? Oh, good, he's muted himself.
He took his own bullet.
Solve the problem.
But big fan of that concept, and I think it's going to be interesting. It's immediately got me thinking of stuff like the Turtles mini series where they're doing wrestling in space. I feel like we could end up going in a similar kind of direction with how weird it can get if it's, necromancer wrestling.
Or the Marvel 2-in-1, where the Thing does wrestling in space.
Also that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is very similar, I realise now. I think we've talked about this before, though, on the Turtles episode. But all those reasons, I also think Danny Warren Johnson's art is, great. And I think his writing, as you guys have said, kind of gets the emotion in the characters pretty fleshed out in no time at all. And that's not something all of these books does. So I think good things. Thank you and good night.
Hooray.
No.
Hello, I'm your dissenting opinion.
Seemed polite.
So, the fourth, I'm going to go with mindset. It's interesting, but I was confused. So ultimately, it was the book I was most confused by, and therefore it's got to go with number 4. It is doing interesting things. The art is really interesting, but I think maybe I need to read more of it to understand what's going on and remember the names of Ben's friends, possibly. That was the characters were quite sketchily written. We spent a lot of time in Ben's head, and I still don't understand him. So there you go. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Potions Inc. Much as I loved it, because this is the niche I have discovered that I really enjoy, which is just ridiculous fantasy. There's been some really good stuff that we've had recently. Based on that concept. Potions Inc. isn't the best of it, but it's enjoyable. There may not be potions much in it, but I like the characters. Yeah, there's not a lot to them. They're very much fantasy type tropes again. But they have ridiculous names, and that accounts for a lot. So I liked it. And now here comes the controversy, because I'm going to do a Powerbomb at number 2. Now I think let's re-explain. I think it's the best written book. I think it's got the best emotional beats. It's got the best characterization. It's really solid. It's got good art. It probably is the best book. However, I just really like dumb things. So, we have established this, that I have no taste at all. I read 90s Valiant, we know this. So for me, that's why Beware the Eye of Odin I would have to put on number 1, because I just really, really enjoyed it for the dumb ridiculousness that it is. Here's a woman who thinks that a mouse, also it's called the Mouse of the Slain, is talking to her. And she wears a cloak of feathers and goes around and rides a boar and says she's a Valkyrie. I'm really into that as a concept. One-armed guy making his own weapon out of an anvil. Very into that. guy who's got, time limited quest, and he has to do these things, and his friends are tagging along, and he doesn't want to protect them. I mean, it's full of absolute dumb tropes, don't get me wrong, and it isn't, sort of the best written, and the characters are basically ridiculous tropes. But I had a lot of fun with it, and although I enjoyed Do a Powerbomb, there's somebody's mother dies. It's not a light-hearted book, and my mindset at the moment, unintentional pun, sorry, is just that I'm leaning more towards, I just want something that my brain can shut off, and I can just enjoy pretty pictures of, tiny little people stealing coins, and that was Beware the Eye of Odin. And that's really why I put it at number 1. Not because it's the best book, just because my brain likes to hug it mentally.
I think if it's I think that's all fair.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Yeah. An interesting month.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mainly because you agreed with Matt and Will.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I do really like Beware the Eye of Odin, and I'm probably going to carry on. I am going to carry on reading it. So, we have been Angela, Matt, Will, and Zach collectively bigger than capes, and will continue to be. We'll be back
soon.
Next week, the week after.
We'll be back in the future.
You decide. Yeah, we'll be back again for another episode of whatever it is we want to talk about. Comics, I guess.
Maybe.
Could be.
Could be Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Could be. Could be time for Salem Plot.
Finally.
I bet, Matt, you've not even started watching the Netflix Sabrina yet.
No, why would I? I can watch the old one where there's a cute himbo Harvey.
Yeah, there is that.
He's so nice.
He really is.
And also, I bet Billy Gunn doesn't show up in the new one.
Not yet. And since it's been cancelled, I doubt it's going to happen yet.
I'm sure there are other wrestlers who appeared in it. But...
Kevin Nash.
Yep, Kevin Nash. Not as Oz, weirdly.
Yeah, that's what's weird about it. So remember that comics are
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Bigger than capes.